chapter 8. Amen. Book of Matthew, chapter 8. We'll be looking at verses 1 through 4 quick verses in the book of Matthew, chapter 8. I'll be reading verse number 4. And it reads, And Jesus saith unto them, See thou tell no man, but go thy way, show thyself to the priest, and offer the gift that Moses commanded for a testimony unto them. And Jesus saith unto him, See thou tell no man. Now, as Jesus Christ was beginning his ministry, it was here that the Lord was beginning to see what his purpose in life was. He came so that each one of us can be cleansed from our sins. He came to free the downtrodden. He came to release us from the bondage of sin. In other words, Jesus came to cleanse the community. So for a few moments, I want to talk to you around the subject of cleansing the community. Cleansing the community. Let us look to the Lord. Dear Heavenly Father, we come before you this day, thanking and praising you, as this is the day that you have made, and Lord, we will rejoice and be glad in it. We now pray that you would give me power from the Holy Spirit. We pray that you would take away pride, that your name would be glorified. It's in Jesus' name we pray. Let everyone say, Amen. Amen. Now here in the book of Matthew chapter 8, as we know, we spent a long time looking at the first 7 chapters as Jesus gave his initial sermon, his Sermon on the Mount. And as he had given all the commandments, as he had given all the instruction, he is now coming down from the mountain and begins his ministry. And it begins in verse number 1 as he says, And when he was come down from the mountain, great multitudes followed him. The first point is the multitude. It says when he comes down from preaching, when he comes down from teaching, there was a great multitude that followed him. And the word great is many. There could have been hundreds, there could have been even thousands that had followed Jesus at this time. And he understood the mindset of the multitudes. When we look at the life of Jesus Christ, he understood how the multitudes were fickle, but he still had much love for the multitudes. He still had compassion for the multitude. Now, if you look at this multitude, Jesus, who was omniscient, he knew all, he knew that this same group of people would betray him. These same people that are following him are the same ones that's going to turn on him, yet Jesus had compassion on the multitude. We know that there were hundreds, possibly thousands that were following Jesus, but as we see how he handled the multitude, there were 12 that he specifically chose to be his disciples. And even within that 12, he knew that one would turn on him. And even within that 12, he had 3, Peter, James, and John, that were part of his inner circle. So we see Jesus knew how to handle the multitudes that followed him. Now, this is a lesson for us because the Lord is letting us know that there are going to be times when there are going to be multitudes or people that are following us for one reason or another. I know that there's going to be times when people are going to see something in you and say, I want to be a part of them because of something they're doing or something they're possessing. Now, I know I had this talk with my son because as he develops as a boxer, there are some people that come around him just because of who he is or what he is doing. And he is very careful about who is around him. And he points out that this one is only here because I'm an athlete, and that one is only here because I'm a boxer. And I tried to show him there's a way that you have to handle the multitude. You don't get rid of everybody. There are some that hang around that you can still show compassion to, even though you're keeping your eye on them, just like Jesus did. And that's difficult for him because he has a different temperament and he wants to just cut them off. I don't trust him and they only want me because I'm a boxer. I trust you. You know, there's not two of you. If they're around you because you're a boxer, being a boxer is you. If you were a basketball player, a great basketball player, that's you. You have to learn how to embrace the multitude. But the problem is just like Jesus knew that this multitude could easily be swayed, we sometimes have that same attitude when we're dealing with the multitude. I know even in this ministry, I know everybody might not be here for a lifetime. Everybody might not follow Pastor. You follow me this week? I say one thing contrary to what you believe or what you hear, and you might decide that you don't want to follow me, but I still have to love you each and every Sunday. I still have to love each and every one of you on Tuesday. Here's where the Lord is challenging us, how we have to deal with the multitude. Now maybe you're not a great ball player. Maybe you're not a boxer. Maybe you're not like me, a great preacher or pastor. But there are some things that you feel people gravitate towards you because of something. Maybe because you have money. Maybe because you have a position. Here's what the Lord is saying. I want you to still love that multitude. I want you to still share the love of Christ to that multitude. I want you to still have compassion even with this multitude. And this is what we saw here, because Jesus understood that I'm here not to serve myself. I'm here because I'm cleansing this community. Look what he said. He moves from the multitude. And in verse number 2, he makes a transition. He said, and behold, there came a leper. So he moves from the multitude and he talks about the misfits. He talks about the leper. He said, as he came down from the mountain, it was all of these people that followed him. And then it was somebody who was a leper. A leper was somebody who had scales. They had a disease that was somewhat contagious. It was very hard for them because they had sores, and the sores were outward in, meaning they began to blister on their body, and it went to their bones, and it began to decay there. And these people were ostracized from society. The lepers weren't allowed to live in the community. They weren't allowed to come and worship in the service. They couldn't even greet people. When they saw someone, they had to walk by and say, unclean, unclean, unclean. They weren't allowed to greet people because if they greet them in this culture, in this context, they were to touch them and hug them. So these were the misfits. These were the ones that didn't feel that they were going to be used by society. But we see when Jesus came to cleanse the community, this is who came along with him. This was the misfits. When I look at a situation that happened just this week, I was challenged. I went over with Sister Brittany and she taught over at Grace Tabernacle, and I was blessed by her word. But I was challenged because when I came there, I expected to see couples. I expected to see people like myself. And when I got there, it was the misfits of society. They were the ones that were coming for the food bank. They were the downtrodden. They were the ones that were forgotten by society. And I was challenged because I wasn't used to being around the misfits anymore. There was a time when I lived in Southwest Philadelphia that I was around the misfits all the time. Well, I done got a little bougie, I admit it. As I moved into the suburbs, I don't hang with those people anymore. I don't see those people anymore. And when I came in contact with them, I felt like I don't really want to be around. I'm being honest. I felt like I don't want to be associated with that group. And this is where the Lord challenged me and said, Pastor Dave, these are the misfits. These are the ones that I came to heal. These are the ones that I came to touch. These are the ones that I came to cleanse. So how are you telling me that you don't want to be around them? This was a challenge for me because I looked and I saw that the Lord came to the leper. The leper came to the Lord. This was the misfits of the world. But then he got a little deep with me, and he reminded me of me. He reminded me, remember when you were growing up and you felt like you were ostracized because your dad didn't live with you. Remember when you were growing up and people went places with their fathers and you felt left out. You felt like you were the ones that was the misfit. Didn't I say And he said, I was able to have compassion on them. Look at this. He said, the leper, behold, there came to him a leper. Now, right now, the leper is already showing that it's something different. Because the leper was not to come to any person. He was not to greet any person. He was not to have contact, but he understood that there was a man that was preaching as though he was the Messiah. And even though the rules said I'm not supposed to come, and even though the Bible and the Torah said that I'm not supposed to speak, I have to reach out to him. No matter what happens to me, I have to be able to go to the Savior. This is the challenge for each one of us, because at times we're going to be placed in situations where we're going to have to cry out to the Savior. Maybe you're in a situation that you caused on your own. He said you're still going to have to cry out to the Savior. Maybe you're in a situation that somebody said it is beyond help. Your mortgage is beyond help. Your marriage is beyond help. Your medical condition is beyond help. Here's where the challenge is to move just like that leper, regardless of what the doctor is saying, regardless of what my girlfriend is saying. I have to get to the Lord. And he said the leper came. But look what he did. He worshiped him. This is very key, because sometimes as we even come into the ministry, we don't come in with the mindset of worship. We come in with the mindset of serve me. Praise team, serve me. Pastor, give a good message, serve me. Here's where the leper recognized, since I'm messed up, I'm not even asking right now for a healing. What I'm doing is, I just want to come be in your presence. He said, and he came and worshiped him. But look what he said. He said, Lord, if thou wilt, I want you to pay real close attention. He says, if thou wilt, thou can make me clean. Now he gives a supposition, if you will. The word will here is the word thelo, which is the Greek word that means if you have a desire and move towards. He says you can. You have the power. You have the dunamis. You are capable of doing it. He said all you have to do is think it, and you're able to do it. And he said, make me clean. Now here, this is something that would transform this leper. Now humans are psychologically, physiologically, and biologically, we are created to have contact with one another. We are created to have dialogue with one another. The senses in our body crave us to want to have fellowship with one another. And without it, without that touch, without that communication, this is where our minds would go astray. We begin to hallucinate. When criminals are incarcerated, if they don't follow the rules, they place them in solitary confinement as a form of punishment. These are the things that the leper was going through. I was watching yesterday that movie, Castaway. Anybody see that? And remember, when he was out on that island by himself and he didn't have human contact, he made friends with a soccer ball. And it was a Wilson soccer ball, and he named the soccer ball Wilson. And when he was trying to get off of the island and Wilson fell off of the boat, and he was going after Wilson like it was his child, and he cried like a baby because he couldn't get to the soccer ball. This was because he was being isolated. He didn't have communication. He didn't have that touch. He had to create it on his own. He said this is what the leper was going to do. He was in a situation where he had to get cured. He said, I'm going to break every rule because I need to get to the Savior. This has to be the mindset with each one of us. Maybe you're here and you're looking for a breakthrough. Maybe my health isn't what it should be. Maybe my marriage, my finances, it isn't what it should be. This is what we have to have the mindset. I don't care what I have to do. I have to get down to the house of God. I don't care who I have to run over. I got to say no to. I have to get down here and get into the master's company. This is what he said. Even the misfits understood that if you will, thou canst make me clean. But look at point number 3. He moves from the multitude. We see the misfit. But then in the third part, he talks about the miracle. He says, and Jesus, look at this, put forth his hand and touched him, saying, I will, be thou clean. And immediately his leprosy was cleansed. Look at the miracle. And Jesus put forth his hand and touched him. Right? You just stop right there. Here's where I was challenged with those mysteries. Because this is where the Lord said, I'm not even supposed to touch somebody that's unclean, because then that makes me ceremoniously unclean. If I touch a leper and he was unclean, he can't go into worship. He can't even go into the Day of Atonement, Yom Kippur, and sacrifice and get his sins forgiven. If I was to touch him, then I would be in that same situation. Here's what the Lord said, even though I know the rules, since you broke the rules to get to me, I'm going to break the rules in healing you. This is where he said, if you come after me, disregarding everything that you had, he said, I'm going to disregard everything that I have as I give to you. This is where Jesus put forth his hand. And just a slight thing, he touched me. I told you how we're made biologically, we need touch. Even as a child in the womb, the child touches himself or herself in anticipation of being touched. As humans, we need that contact with one another. And this is where Jesus said, I'm going to break the rule. And this word for touch here is a caressing. It wasn't just a touch and I got to wash my hands afterwards. This was Jesus laying his hands upon the leper, saying, even if it means that I'm unclean, I'm here to serve you. Well, this was challenging, because when I was over at Grace, I ain't going to lie, I ain't want nobody to touch me. I ain't want too many people sitting next to me. I confessed it. I told my sister-in-law, I said, man, I got to get it together, because I got bougie. I didn't feel comfortable with this group. This is where the Lord once again challenged me and said, who did I tell you to go cleanse? Who cleansed you? Remember how you were. This is what you have to do. This was a challenge for me, but I see that Jesus here was putting this right in front of all the people, allowing them to see that the leper was touched by Jesus. Look what he says. He says, I will. Here's the miracle. Not just that he touched him. This is Jesus saying, I'm the master. I'm going to touch you. But he says, I will. Be thou clean. The man said, if thou wilt. Jesus said, I will. We don't realize sometimes our will is connected to Jesus' will. The man said, if you will, and Jesus said, I will. Because this man pressed forward, because this man didn't let the rules stop him, because this man didn't let the multitude tell him that he can't touch Jesus, he moved forward. Jesus said, I will. Be thou clean. This is where I told you before, sometimes our oppression is tied to our obedience. See, if we will or have the will to do something, Jesus said, I want to bless you, I will. I know even this week I was challenged, because I still have an old nature. I still have some things that I have desires for. And as my wife was away, praising the Lord, and I was having a good time, and the Lord was challenging me. He was sending people that needed counseling. I think I counseled like 6 people over the weekend, but I also had some downtime. And during that downtime, when nobody's around, the enemy came right back to me and said, hey, you can have a little fun if you want. You don't even have to leave your home. You don't have to, you did all of that counseling. You might as well take a break and reward yourself. This is where the challenge came to me. But I had to come back to this same text that I was about to teach and say, do I want what God has for me, or do I want what me has for me? If thou wilt, he will. If my will will line up to his will, he said, I'm going to give you the desires of your heart. He said, if you want to follow my guidance, he said, then my will is going to line right up with the Lord's will. Some of us are not being blessed today because we're doing our will. I'm not judging, but I got to be the preacher and teacher, because I've been there. But some of us want to have relationships, and Brittany was on that. Some of us want to have relationships where we're not married, but since we love each other, and we have this kindred spirit. I mean, they were saying some deep stuff. When they said, no, we're not married, but we soak together. Sometimes she says something, and I finish her words. And one time, she was hurting, and I started hurting. I didn't know what was wrong, and I called her, and she was hurting. I don't need no piece of paper to tell me I'm married. You're in sin. It's no other way to say it. You may, I want to stand up and say so bad, well, if you love her that much, why don't you just marry her? Why don't you just do the right thing? This is what the Lord is saying. You can't say, I'm going to do it my way, and then think I'm going to be blessed. I can't do anything that I want to do, and then come to the Lord and say, Lord, okay, now I know I smoked weed today. I know I was lying on this one. I know that I committed fornication. Now, dear Heavenly Father, I pray in the name of Jesus, this job is mine. I name it and I claim. That's what the Lord said. My will needs to be the same as your will, and then your will is going to be the same as mine. Here's where the man said, Lord, if you will. And then the Lord came right back to him and said, I will. Now, if you look at that, exactly what he's saying here in the tense, he says, be thou clean. And immediately, his leprosy was clean. Now this is key because there were times when Jesus healed or created a miracle, and it took a little bit of time. There was a process. Some had to go down to the water and wash 7 times. Some had to wash their eyes. Some had to wait. Here's what the Lord said immediately. Because this misfit said that I'm in need of a miracle, and I'm not worried about who is coming against me, immediately at the same time, this leprosy was cleansed. And this is key because some of us don't even realize how close we are to getting our healing. Some of us are hurt in the past. So some of us right now are saying, Lord, I just need a financial blessing. Some of us are just saying, Lord, I need a mate. Lord, I can't get my mind together. Lord, I have all of these desires. And the Lord is saying, you might be right at the point where I'm ready to touch you and create your miracle. He said immediately, there was no pause, there was no delay. At the same time that the speaker was speaking, his leprosy was cleansed. Here's where the miracle took place. Now watch what Jesus did. This is interesting because as he was cleansing the community, and he meant the entire community, he didn't pick and choose, just as we do, because there's people that we want in our church and there's others that we don't want in the church. You can look at me funny, but y'all just like me. You don't want that stinking man to come in and sit beside you, Sister Norman. You don't want that man that looks like he hasn't shaved in 5 weeks come and sit next to Elder Mel. Mel's going to start grabbing his belongings and pulling them tighter and saying that I'm going to move on the pulpit. Here's where we're all challenged. Here's where we're all challenged. And God is challenging us as he gives us the misfits. He wants us to move in their life just like he moved in ours with the miracle. But then in the last part, he gives them the mission. He says, and Jesus saith unto him, see thou, tell no man, but go thy way, show thyself to the priest. Now, it's interesting because Jesus created this big miracle. I would have thought he went and said, tell everybody, so that everybody would understand what was going on. But he gave the man a specific mission. He said, see thou, tell no man. In other words, I want you to go directly. Go thy way and show thyself to the priest. Now, the priest here, the words that he used here is not the typical word for the priest, which is the hagios. This is the one that's separated. He said, I'm not talking about him. He said, this person, stay with me. He said, this person is the one that's in the office of the priest, but he isn't separated. In other words, Jesus was doing something very subtle. He was moving not from the top down, he was moving from the bottom up. He was touching those that were misfits, he was touching those that were the downtrodden, those that were marginalized, and he said, I'm sending you to those that are supposed to be the leaders. He said, show thyself to the priest. He wanted the priest to see exactly what he did in their lives. He says, and offer the gift that Moses commanded for a testimony unto them. Now in Leviticus chapter 14, it gave specific instructions on how the leper was to be cleansed. The leper had to bring 2 turtle doves. Then one was supposed to be sacrificed. And then they spread the blood on the leper. And it was specific instructions. The leper was to have the blood spread on his right ear. And then the blood spread on his right thumb. And then on his right big toe. And it was all of these instructions. And the reason being is there was a process that had to take place for the cleansing. Now, when we look at certain things, we say, well, why in the world would all of that equal I'm being cleansed? Why would I have to stand in front of the priest and have the blood put on my right ear and then put on my right thumb and not on my pinky toe, it's got to be on the big toe? Here's where the Lord is saying, I'm giving him a mission. In other words, I need for him to follow instructions. If you want to get your cleansing, if you're trying to look at getting your blessing, here's where the challenge comes. You have to follow the Lord's instructions. You can't just decide I'm going to create my own way of doing things and things are going to work out. He said specifically, these are the things that I want you to do. Whenever we go to school, there are certain things that we have to do in order to achieve our certificates or our diplomas. We have to go through 12 years of school just to get a high school diploma. And you can't do nothing with that nowadays. That's just the start. But what it's designed to do is to show people that you can follow instructions. When you go to college, you spend 4 years at a university. But I could go to college for theology, and then I could go and get a job at Elder Mel's place of business, which is a pharmaceutical industry. Now, the reason is they're sending us to these universities so that they can see whether or not we can follow instructions and follow the guidelines. I'm able to take something from another field and transfer it to another field, but what they're saying is he's able to follow the guidelines. The Lord is saying the reason we can't get our blessings is we are trying to create different guidelines. We're trying to create something else that the Bible is saying. The Bible is saying that if you want to have sex with a man and a woman, between a man and a woman, there must be wedding vows. When we go away from these, we're going away from our blessing. If thou wilt, I will. If God is saying that I want you to be forgiving and you harbor unforgiveness, you're not following the instructions. Now, my will is not lined up with your will. I know for me, I'm challenged because there are so many things that God is saying that he has in store for me. And I want them all. I don't want to leave anything on the table. But this is where he's challenging me. And I can honestly say I'm answering that call. If God is saying turn left, I'm turning left. Not sure why. If God is saying turn right, I'm going to turn right. If he said go straight, everybody in here might not understand, but I'm going straight. This is where the Lord is saying, this is my mission. I know in closing, as I was talking with my wife this week, and she was asking for some advice at the women's retreat. And I gave her clear-cut instructions. Boom, boom, boom. And she came back, and she did bang, bang, bang. I said boom, boom, boom. I know, but I thought better if I did bang, bang, bang. I said, how did it work out? Well, it didn't work out too good. That's because you didn't follow instruction. This is where the Lord is challenging us. If you're looking for that cleansing, you're looking for that blessing, you're looking for that forgiveness, you're looking for that spiritual enrichment, here's what the Lord is telling us. I want to cleanse this community. I want to cleanse that community. But it doesn't come with a price. He said our will has to match up with his will. We see that the Lord handled a great group of people, the multitude. Even those that were going to turn on him, the Lord said, I'm still going to love them. And then we see specifically who he loved. He didn't come to the top of the line, guys. He didn't come to the leaders. He came to the misfits, those that were at the bottom of the barrel. But he said, each one of you misfits, I want to perform a miracle in your life. All you have to do is say, I'm going to press forward. It doesn't matter what man is saying. It doesn't matter what the world is telling me. If I'm looking for this blessing, this miracle, I'm going to press forward. Now, as he did the miracle, what he did is he turned them right around and said, now this is your mission. I need for you to follow instructions. This is challenging for each one of us Because we all have our own way of doing things. We all have our mindset. We all have our history on how we were raised. He said, my instructions are right here. If you're able to follow my directions, he said, my will is going to line up with your will, and I can then give you the desires of your life. Let's give the Lord a hand.